Hey guys, so today I'm going to be installing an alarm. We're going to be using the Clifford system. It's just a standard alarm system, nothing major with it. We are going to be adding door locks to our vehicle, which is a 2013 Chevy Express. Now, I've done this installation before in another vehicle, which is a little bit older, but it's similar. So we're going to be going into the door. Okay, hey guys, so we're here at the passenger side. This thing doesn't have a glove box. There's a little cover under here that usually the BCM is under here on most of these Chevy Expresses. And that's generally where we're going to get the wiring on these vehicles. Now, it's like a 10mm bolt here and here. I'm going to go ahead and take those out. So there's one right under here. Now, there's supposed to be another one under here. It doesn't have it, so somebody's been in here before. And then you just kind of pull towards you. It pops right out. Just make sure to grab it from here and here, because it has little guides here, and if you just pull from the bottom, you might snap those guides out. There's another guide right here, and then there's just 3 clips. So if you pull from the side here and then just pull across the top, you'll be able to get that off. And the BCM is right in here. So what we want to do is we want to get this out. I believe it just... So the BCM is right here. So if we want, we could take this cover off, make it a little bit easier for us to access the wiring. And it just has like little clips on each side. You just kind of pull it out of the way, and then it exposes all our wires here. Now, most of the wires, you'll be able to get them right here at the BCM. So we're going to check the parking lights first, guys. Okay, guys, so to test for the parking lights, what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to put a ground lead on our test light. So just get a piece of metal right there. And then next thing we want to do is we want to probe that wire right here. It's on the white plug. It's the 8th wire, so you count 4 and then 4, and it looks like it's the only one that's sitting there. And if you push on it, usually you'll hear like a click. I hear a click under the driver's door. Let me see if I could see it from here. Yeah, I can see it. Parking light's on. So that's our parking light wire, which is the light blue wire right here on the white plug. The only one we're having a pretty hard time with would be finding the door trigger, which we'll go back to that in a second. So now the horn, it's saying that there's a brown plug on the BCM, pin 18. Brown plug right here, pin 18. Make sure the horn honks on this. Yeah, it works, okay. Now I ran into an issue last time when I did one of these. I could not find the horn honk on here, or the horn at the BCM. There it is. We found it. Okay, so it's going to be, if you're looking at the BCM, you look at it from the bottom part, it's not the tan one that's on the bottom, it's the one over here to the right. This one here, you can see there. So obviously that's pin 18. I just can't, it's kind of hard to count them because everything's in the way. And the only thing left to find now is the dome light. So once we trigger the dome light, it should light up our dome light up top. Just can't seem to find that wire. Okay, we're gonna go back to that. It says the pink pin 23. It's a tan wire. I see a tan wire down there. Ah, I think it gave me the wrong plug. I think it's supposed to be a gray plug. Yeah, it says pink plug here, but it's funny because I just tapped this tan wire down here on the gray plug and it actually lit up. Let's see what number that is. I'm going to test it one more time. Yep, that's it. That's triggering it. So it's going to be the gray plug. If you're looking not at the top but at the bottom, there's a tan wire right here. That's going to be our trigger for our doors. So that pretty much does it for those. We're just going to tap these really quick just so we know which wires they are, and then I'm going to go back to our door lock. Okay guys, so what I like to use on these is the little red T-taps because they grab thinner wire. So we're going to go to each one. I'm going to tap those really quick. So light green over here at the BCM, pink wire, pin 14. Do this one here. I pinched it right there so I could see what I did it. Put that down, that's one. Next one, that was our ignition. We're going to do our parking lights, which is light blue. It's at the white plug. It's right here. Snap that down. Next is our tan wire, which is in the gray plug, not in the pink plug like it told us. This is why it's so important to actually test the wires, even though you have instructions, because a lot of times it could be maybe the wrong year, or it could just be maybe the person didn't type it in right and got confused. You just never know. You got to remember, man, we're human. We all make mistakes. So you want to make sure that you're double checking to make sure that the wires that they're giving you are the correct ones. So don't just start plugging stuff in. Once they give you an idea where it's at, test it for yourself. And obviously if you're working on something like this, it's a little, this is electronics. You kind of know, you have to know a little bit of how to work a test light and all that good stuff. Wire at the BCM, pin 23, but it's at the gray plug, not the pink plug. So I will mark my instructions there for a future reference. The horn is a tan wire at the brown plug, which we said I believe was over here. That from the top. I'll test it one more time. Just to make sure I have the correct wire. Sometimes if I pinch it, I can tell that I worked on it, but I can't see this one. So yeah, that's the right one. So that's our horn. So it's the brown plug, it's the tan wire, pin 18. There's two tan wires. It's not the one way on the bottom, so it's on the side. And again, if you have your test light to ground and you just test it, it will honk if it's the right one. There we go. And that pretty much does it for that. You put one on the ignition. Yeah, ignition at the green plug. The light blue is the parking lights negative. Again, if you're going to get, you're going to use positive parking lights, you want to go over the fuse box under the driver's seat. It's a light gray plug, 56 pin plug, pin B4. I don't know what that means, but when you get under there, if you're looking for it, you'll have to track that down. Make sure these don't come out, guys. Our horn is right here on the dark brown one. It's tan wire. Pin 18. And then the doors, the door trigger, which was a tan wire, but it wasn't on the pink plug, it's on the gray plug. And that one is also, it's the one on the bottom. It's the one down here on the bottom on the gray plug. If you flip it over, it's right next to a green one, light green. All right. It should just lift up. So I'm only going to show you one side. The other side's going to be exactly the same. Okay guys, so now we're going to do the door locks. So first thing I want to do is I want to pull this plastic. Be real careful not to rip it. I'm not going to pull it all the way off, but enough to be able to work in here comfortably. So basically we want to get in here. Okay, we want to position our door lock somewhere here where it's going to not interfere with the regulator, but you want as close of a straight shot to down here as possible, because this is the part where there's not a lot of tension. If you try to put it here, if it's the only spot you have, well then it's the only spot you have. You have to angle it at an angle, and then it's going to have to kind of come down, and then it might give you some problems, okay? So sometimes what you have to do is, if you do put the motor somewhere here, and then you run your cable, your other rod, you have to bend the rod to kind of go at an angle, so it'll be like straight, and then once it hits here, it'll go at an angle, and then that's when you'll tie it right there, and then that way it'll just kind of pull like that. But I usually like to tie it, like, say, right down here. I usually like to tie it right up in here. So I'll show you. So these ones here on the front doors are going to take regular door locks. We chose to go with the DI ones. They're a little bit more expensive, but they're more durable. These things tend to last longer than your cheapy little $5 door locks. And these ones are the DI, they're the 524T. Standard door lock, looks like a regular actuator. 2-wire. So basically what we're gonna do is, this comes with a bracket, so you can try to kind of put the bracket somewhere, and then basically mount your motor to it somewhere. Sometimes you can mount it directly to the frame up here. It just depends. Sometimes you can go the other way, and then the motor's just going to work the opposite way. So basically, like, this would be like where it's really locking, it'll be unlocking the door for you. You know, you just wire these reverse, because these basically work on polarity. So positive one side, positive the other side, the motor shoots one way or the other. Now, I think the last time I did one of these, which was about 1.5 years ago for this same guy, he just got a newer vehicle. I think I did them right here. Somewhere right here. So you want to make sure that this is not going to hit anywhere. So let me grab my window crank. So I like to put the window down to make sure I'm not going to hit anything, and then move it up so that we see like what's actually moving, what's actually getting in the way, where we have space, where we don't. So you want to make sure, I mean, you have a little bit of clearance here, so if your screws kind of go through the little frame, as long as they're not too long, they're not going to hit on the window. You want to make sure of that. So sometimes the screws that come with it, you might not be able to use them. You might have to use something shorter. This is where modifications kind of come. So what you want to do is you want to basically, let's say, lock it and extend the cable all the way. And then basically you'll cut this rod right about here. So then when it pulls back, they'll both pull back and nothing will interfere here. You don't want to cut it over here to this part over here because you don't want it to be binding up here. So you want to make sure to cut it a little bit short here. You have all this area to put the little connector on there to grab it. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to mount it onto here so that this part is actually kind of sticking out. Because if I go further in, it's going to take that rod way inside and it's going to sit way inside of here. I want the rod to sit as close to this as possible so that it doesn't have any kind of drag. So there's a little bit of a hump right here. So this part's going to sit right there. And then this part, the hump kind of goes down, which kind of makes the door lock kind of sit a little bit like this, which is perfect because it makes it sit almost level with this part right here. So grab that. Try to cut it a little bit. You have something that could cut this rod, good for you, but I don't. So I just basically kind of bend it a little bit and then just kind of go work it back and forth. Generally they break. There it is. So just kind of wiggle it back and forth, and it usually just puts that end there. Now, if you get too rough of an edge here, then you might want to like file it down a little bit in order to get it inside these little connectors, because sometimes it's a little hard to get them in there when it's kind of jacked up on the edge here. This one seems okay. All the other screws seem like a little bit too small. Yeah, well actually, yeah, 1.5 inch. It's basically going to be sticking out about 1/4 inch into the door, which is perfect. That'll work. So basically all I'm doing is I'm drilling the screw into the actuator. That way, I'm not drilling it when I get it over there. Basically that would tie into there. Work. So back off the screw just a hair. It gives me flat surface. And then I'll just drill into it. It's got a self-tapping head on it. Now that I have it marked, it. Okay. Marks it for me. I just barely want to make the hole so that way when I get in there it tightens up. I want these to be loose. Solid. There we go. slight little bend in this right here, so it gets it. Try to get it as even as possible, like level wise. Gives you a little bit of now, like I mentioned, I mean, these do come with brackets. I mean, and they come with their own screws and kind of little things on there. Those are made for like as if you're gonna mount it a different way. So you don't always use those guys. So if you don't realize you're not using those parts and you don't know why, you gotta remember these are universal door locks, so they're made for different applications. So what you want to do is you want to guide, put the little screws in by hand first. Don't ever try to torque them down with a drill or anything. Make sure you get them on here first. And if it doesn't want to go in because it's too rough on the edge, you know, kind of file the edge or grind the edge down a little bit so that you can get this little thing in there. And then from here, what you want to do is just kind of hand tighten it with the screwdriver. Just hold this as far over as you can. Make sure it's in the complete locked position here. And then this top piece, you can put this anywhere you want. Like, do I want it further over here, here? Whatever you think looks a little bit more level, that's probably where you want to stick it. That way, it won't get in the way. It won't have a lot of drag. So, I'm just going to torque it down a little bit with my drill, just to give me an idea of what if I'm gonna leave it there, or you can do it by hand. Just giving it a real quick snug. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take my drill battery and I'm going to insert these wires into my drill battery to make this actuator basically do that. Okay? And you want it to go as smooth as possible so that way we're not running into any issues. Funny. Okay. So basically all I'm gonna do here, back you a little bit. Basically all I'm doing is you can take like a 9-volt battery, or if you have a 12-volt. I take my drill battery and it's got 2 little slots inside. And if you look at them, they actually say positive and negative on them, which I really don't care. Right now this is in the up position, which would mean unlock, I believe. So lock would be, I think it would be green. So when it goes to unlock, it's actually going to unlock up here. But that, I don't care what it does. I want it to move. That's all I'm looking for. So I'll put it in one way. If it doesn't move at all, then I'm going to flip flop it. Because I can barely even see these anyway. So I just want to see the flow of the actuator to make sure that it's properly installed. So here we go. And what we want, see how that didn't go all the way up? I don't know if you guys can see it. What we're aiming for is a perfect actuator that's going to go all the way down and all the way up, all the way down, all the way up. And that's where this adjustment comes into play. So if you're noticing that it's opening, it could be like that, could still be fine, but you want to try to get it up. If you can adjust it a little bit, basically all you need to do is maybe move this a little bit further over, or make sure that this is extended all the way, pulled all the way down. So just like we extended it out, if that didn't do us justice, like say I went like that, right? So we knew it was all the way down. It worked fine. But going all the way up, it didn't unlock it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to loosen this. I'm going to push this actuator all the way in and then retighten it back up. So give me 1 second here. So I'm going to push that all the way in. See, I kind of went in a little bit more there. You know what, I'm going to loosen both of them because the other one, and now it's just barely grabbing on the rod. So I want it to grab a little bit. You know what, let's put this in the middle. Let's go a little bit further in the middle this time. All right, so we're going to go again with our battery. Check it one more time. This time we're going to flip-flop the wires. It seemed to go down, but it didn't stay down. So it's working because it is locking and unlocking, but it's bouncing back like there's too much tension. that time it went all the way up. That unlocked perfect. So we almost got it just about right. So we want to see how it's not coming all the way down. So I don't know if it's coming all the way down earlier. So I'm going to move this a little bit further in just to give us a little bit more pull and push. Because what happens sometimes if this is adjusted too far out, it just doesn't have enough strength to pull it all the way down. And maybe this actuator doesn't need to come all the way down. I do want it to go all the way in. Okay, that went all the way down. Perfect. Now, I usually like to torque them all the way down, but every actuator is a little different. These are really strong actuators, so it seems like if you tighten it too down, they're torquing and they're bouncing back. So what I did is basically, instead of pushing it all the way one way or all the way the other way, I kind of went all the way and then I went back just a hair, and then I tightened it down, which seemed to make it operate both directions good, because that way it gives it just a little bit of play. So that's pretty much it. So we'll torque these down just with a screwdriver really, really good. We don't want to strip those out. And then what I like to put is put a little drop of crazy glue on the head, so then that way these don't loosen up down the line and then the customer has problems where the door lock is jamming. And then next thing we'll do is we'll run these wires through here, through the grommet and stuff, and then we'll run them into the car. So I'm just going to tighten these down as tight as I can get them by hand. And then I just put a little tiny, just a little drop crazy glue on there. Don't go crazy on there. This is optional, guys. I do this because if I go to take that off and it busts, I'm going to put a whole new one on there anyway. So I just don't want those screws to back off once I got this thing the way I want it. I want that to kind of be almost permanent on there. For the customer. And the nice thing with these is that these come with some sort of wire, so we'll be able to use it for at least for the two fronts. The back one I'm going to have to run my own wire because those ones are it's a longer run. These wires aren't going to reach all the way back there. And if your car doesn't have any type of rubber pieces on the side right here, these do come with a rubber piece that you can put the wire through so that you can run it through the side right there where the door goes in, drill out a hole and all that good stuff, and then get that to work. So what we could do here, so that we got these, since I know that lock is actually this way on the motor, but it's actually unlocked here. I'm gonna flip-flop these wires right here, so when I wire it over there with my relays, those wires I'm going to go lock to lock, unlock to unlock, but over here it's already going to be flip-flopped the way it's supposed to be. If that makes sense. Because in one place or the other, here over there, these wires have to flip-flop, or else when I go to hit lock, it's going to unlock the van. Hopefully that makes sense to you guys. So I'm just going to put a couple of end caps on here real quick. Yeah, and then what you could do here, I mean, if this is optional as well, I like to take these wires and then basically put them into my drill. Obviously, got to be a drill with the chuck on it. And then I'm going to walk back till I stretch this out, and then when I go to tighten it up, it's going to swirl them around so that they're kind of intertwined, nice and tight. So when I get them in there, they're easier to get in there. So you're not going to see me, but you're usually will be able to see the wire right here. And there you go, nice and so it makes it easier to kind of route them in here. Okay, right now, what we're going to do is we're going to take off this rubber grommet on both sides. Okay. And then we're going to take our wire that we were working on, and we're going to try to, you know, kind of like just follow any of these other wires that are kind of here, put them together over there, and then we're going to zip tie those together, kind of like that. And then we're going to take that wire, we're going to come out right here through the grommet area. Took it off. We'll just take some zip ties and then zip tie it next to the other wiring that's already in the vehicle. That way your wiring is not going to interfere with anything. You do want to take this side plate off. There's an actual clip right here, so you want to pop that one off. There's one on the bottom too. There it is. There's one on the back. Yeah, it's got one more on the back. It's got one here, and then a clip on the back. So pop those off. That way you can route your wire real easily through that grommet. Pull on the grommet. Try to get our fingers in there. Looks like somebody tried to run a wire in here for something else. Ghetto style. So once we get our wire in there, what's nice is when we have it swirled around like that, both wires will come through real easily. So everything you're doing on this side, you're going to do the same thing on the other side. Let's go ahead and put our grommet back on. Kind of push it all right back into place. It's seated right. And now we have our wires here for our door lock. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run all the wire into this central point here. The relays will be here. The alarm will be here. And I'll be able to tie everything into this one spot here because the brain is right here for the ECU brain is here, so I can just get the wires and go right to the alarm. So it's easier to go to one point that's kind of centralized for all the door locks. And obviously easier because it's right here, right next to everything else. Okay guys, so reverse order to put all this back together. So we're going to put this one back together, and then we're just going to test it really quick with the door panel on, make sure that nothing's hanging up, nothing's hitting on here. So go ahead and just put this plastic piece back on there. And go ahead and make sure none of our clips are missing. Alright, so we're going to go ahead, we put the plastic back up here. Now we're going to go ahead and put the door panel back on. And then we're going to go ahead and check this. Let's hook it back up here. Make sure your clips are lined up. Gotta dive down there to get these lined up. Okay, so now we have the door panel back on there. All this other stuff's not going to interfere with this, so I'm just going to go ahead and test the actuator right now that I have it. Make sure my connection that I put on there is all good before I start putting all this back together. So I just want to watch that. I'll do the same thing, slide our wires in there. There we go. Sounded good. Locked and unlocked perfectly, just like we want, guys. So we'll do the same thing on the other side. I'm not showing you that, but get to finishing putting this back together. So put this piece back on here. It's got a little tab down there. And then push that into place. And we have a couple of pieces here. Make sure these pieces are back lined up. Here, got spots on the bottom. Right up the top. Get there. Goes like that. To 7 millimeters. There. 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 So got those two in there, and then there's a couple there, there's one there, so there's 4 other ones. And these ones you don't want to over torque these because you'll break the plastic. So just, and the last piece basically snaps in. So we have a guide there. Line it up. Snap that back into place. These two sides going first. Got 2 little tabs there. And then these 2 push in. Good to go. So we're going to put this in. Let's make sure. I'm looking at the other side and the window crank is actually facing up. So when you take these off, make sure you look and see which way the cranks are facing. Or just put them both back the way you want. You're going to put them straight or up and down. It doesn't really matter. But this one's facing like 3/4 of the way, maybe at like 11 o'clock. So we're going to go ahead and push this clip pin back in. It's got to go down in order to lock it into place. With the window all the way up, I'm going to put it in that same direction as the other side. And just kind of turn it till it kind of goes in, locks into place, and you're good to go. This side's done. Okay guys, so I figured out how to adjust these the best way. So basically what we want to do is this. So once we get to this point where we want to tie this into the actual motor here to the lock deal. What I want to do is, say for instance, we're going to go ahead and lock it all the way. So this is going to extend all the way to basically make that happen. Once we extend it, we want to come back maybe 1/8 of an inch and then torque it down. Okay, that way it gives it a little bit of play, so when it pulls and it bounces, it doesn't actually make it bounce back. Because what was happening on the other side is it was actually bouncing, and it was like when it would lock, say it would lock, it would go like that and it would kind of come back down a little bit. What happened is, say I would go to lock it, it would go to lock, I'm sorry, yeah, it would go to to lock, and it would go like that and it would kind of bounce back up a little bit. And the same thing when it would unlock, it would go like that and it would kind of come back because it was just too much force down here on the bottom. So what I did is, by loosening that up a little bit, it gives it just a little bit of place, and when it bounces, it's just going to go like that. See, I went all the way up and stood all the way up. And it went down and it stayed all the way down. So we just want to, once you make that adjustment, just give it maybe like, I think like 1/8 of an inch. Just loosen it and don't make it completely extended out. I've done that with other door locks and I haven't had that problem, but with these DI ones, they're really strong. So I've had to obviously make an adjustment there. And that kind of happens when you're working with different products. Some of the cheaper door locks are not as strong, and those ones you have to fully extend them for them to fully extend this all the way out either way. So that's just a little tip I wanted to make sure that you guys got when you guys are putting these in. Okay guys, so the next step, what I did was when I routed the wire for the driver's door lock, I went under the dash, basically under here. I went under here and I kind of just looped it up and over. There's like a couple of pieces of metal. Looped it under there, ran it through here, down to here. Then it comes down here, and then there's an opening right here in the back, and I brought it out through here. Okay, see that? And then what I did was I popped off this piece right here from the back. I just stuck my hands behind there and I pushed it, popped it out, drilled a hole, and I mounted my LED on there. And then I ran the wires the same way, kind of through there. There's the wire right here for the LED. Came out, ran that to the back of there, through here, and now we're here. So we basically have two front door lock wires. Take apart the back door, and we're going to put an actuator back here. We're going to run it along here, which is going to be the fun part. This is the hardest part of the job here. We're going to route it all through there, through the top of there, through there, and up and over there. These are the door lock wires. I didn't have any more blue and green, so I had to use orange and green, which is kind of good for me because then I can distinguish the back door from the front doors. So that'll be the next step. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start from in here, get the wires, kind of put it in there where the other wires are that are right here. It's up a little bit of wires. And the rest of this I'm going to start pulling up, coming around here. I'm going to go ahead and pull this rubber all the way around. Pull this rubber around here. Don't use anything sharp up here because this might have airbags up here. You never know, or curtains of some kind. With any vehicle, so just use a plastic tool. Now the bad part about this is that as you're trying to tuck this in, it wants to pull and come down. What you can also do is just take a little piece of split glue, put it on there. So it'll make the wire a little bit thicker, and it'll help it from not falling down. You can either leave it in there or you can take it out when you're done. Sometimes that helps to kind of keep it up here so you don't, because you're tugging on it a little bit and it wants to come down. So right up here, once I get to this area here, I'm gonna kind of pull down a little bit and I'm gonna tuck it and I'm gonna go that way with it. We'll go up like that and then go back there, okay? Okay guys, so I went ahead and I took the wiring under here. I had to put some gloves, I don't want to get it dirty. And then I got here and then I just threw all the wires over. You can see the wire right here. They're all dropped down there in the back. This one has a cage right here. So then I went ahead and I just put all this rubber piecing back on. The hardest part is going to be right here. You want to take like a plastic tool and kind of push really hard on this part so it gets this part back in and so it lays that rubber piece back. As you see, the wire comes down there and it comes over here. It actually comes back. There's a hole right here and then it comes right back out through here. So now I have all my door locks right here and my LED. And then what I'll do is I'll take all the wires from here, once the alarm's in here, and I'll route them over here and I'll just cut them to size. So now we're going to go to the back, get started back there. So the next step is I'm going to route this wiring up behind here all the way down there, and then I'm going to go down. Now before I do that, I have to put some split loom on that. So I'm going to go ahead and put some split loom and I'm going to start routing this in there. I'm going to fast forward through this part of the video more than likely because it's going to take a while for me to get up there. So I'm going to bring it for just a little bit, then I'm going to zoom you back out as I'm doing this. Let me mention one thing before I start putting the split loom on. It's about a 30-foot run all the way from there all the way to the door. Now that's what I kind of calculated it at. Hopefully I'm not short. It's okay if I'm long, but roughly it's about 30 feet, maybe a little less than that. Do want to stretch this wire out, kind of get it as straight as possible. Now, if you don't want to intertwine it, you don't have to. You're going to be putting it inside a split loom anyways. I just like doing it because when I'm working in the front, it makes it easier for you to kind of get it through the passages and kind of get it through all the spots. So what we're going to do is we're just going to start putting the loom on there, opening it up, which is the hardest part. You got to open it up with your finger. Work about 6 feet at a time. Put it on there, tap it down, and then slowly just start to put it on there, and then work that loom all the way up to where you can't see it. Continue another 6 feet, and just keep working the split loom. Okay guys, so you want to loom it. You don't want to probably loom the whole thing unless you know you can get it down there, because you don't want it getting stuck over here on the side. So what happens sometimes when you try to get the wire down there, it's really hard to get it down in here if it's really, really thick. So usually just, you want to get it, you know, maybe 6 inches, a foot of loom, and then you're basically going to cut this loom off. And then any areas that show up, you could just put loom in that area and just zip tie it, okay? So I'm going to cut it right about here, just cut the loom. And then what we're going to do, we'll go back there, and we're going to start looping it. We're going to start getting it behind here. So the loom makes it a little bit difficult sometimes to try to get it behind some of this stuff. So make sure that the wire is nice and kind of tight so that you can try to get it over to the other side. Like this. See that? Behind here, then you fish it out. But you want to keep it tucked back in that channel so that the split loom will actually fit. Because if you just do it right here, it's not going to fit. Or you could just cut the split loom in that area. You don't want to put any in like this. Or you don't have to put split loom. It's up to you. I like doing it. It looks cleaner. The truck has split loom all the way around. Some areas it's got tape. Coming up to the area where I have split loom, I'm just going to push the split loom as far back as I can, and it comes out through the other side. And this just kind of gets tucked back. I'm not going to zip tie it or anything like that. You're just going to pull it kind of tight. You don't want it loose, okay? Specifically up there by where that door moves. Same thing here. We're going to go behind here. Make sure your wire's nice and tight, twisted, so that when you put it through, you're able to grab it on the other side. So kind of push it as far back as you can. Pull it out. This vehicle hasn't had any roof damage, so we don't have no problems with getting this in there. The last one I did for this guy, it had some roof damage. So I had a little bit of a hard time trying to fish this, the loom through and the wire through, because it was bent up here in these areas. Same thing, once you get it kind of tight, tuck it as far back as you can, and just keep working it and get all the way to the end. it's ideal if you are working on one of these that the customer cleans out the van. I've told this guy before, but this guy's working, he's bringing it in on his time off, so he doesn't have time to clean it out. I just got to work around for him. He's a really good customer of mine, so I don't mind doing it. He left me the truck the whole day. I started this job about 10 a.m. It's about 2 o'clock. And I have 2 actuators in. The alarm system is not wired in yet, but I have all the wires already. That should take maybe 30-40 minutes once we get to that point. This is the hardest part. What I mean the hardest part is getting it down here and trying to fish it through these areas on the side over here. So let me show you what I'm talking about. So I'm going to come in through here, and then I got to figure out what area I can come down through, because a lot of times you can't come down through in here. Like you want to come down here. Like I can try to come through this area and see if it actually drops down. But if it doesn't, then I'm going to do is I'm just going to loop down here, zip tie it here. I could actually just come down this way and then go in, which would be the easiest way, and then go down and then try to go to that boot. So I'll go ahead and see what I can do right now, and I'll go from there. Like I said, it's been about a year since I did one of these. I could have swore I fished it through there, or through one of these spots, or I might have came down like that. I don't know if I came through the top, because I don't think I can get there from here. It's going to be too hard. There's too many side crevices that the cable might get stuck on. So I think what I did is I came in through here. Let's see if I can get it down and see if it hits anywhere. Oh, I got it. Wire right there. It's coming down, and you can grab it in here, and you can pull it out through there. And then we'll continue to try to go down and then get it through the grommet. Try to keep it as much in the wall as possible. Sorry, it's kind of hard to see in here, guys. The guy has a big old sheet of drywall in here, and I can't move it. So you just basically fishing the wire into here to here. And then basically we'll just tuck it. And I think what I'm going to do here is I'm going to leave a little extra wire, and I'm going to bring this over to here. And then these 2 wires will just sit there kind of like that. Also, if you want it to look a little better, you can also put a bigger piece of split loom up there and then tuck that down, and then that will definitely make it stay down if it doesn't want to stay down. I might grab another piece of split loom and just kind of shove it up there. So this is the loom that I'm using. I'm just going to wrap this up there around that, kind of make it seem like it's fatter. That way, shove it in there. Maybe it'll just stay. There it goes. The way it's not coming out. It's a little bit nicer. You can't even tell. Okay, got the wires to here. We still need to get down all the way to here. So the next step is we're going to push the loom, just like we did on the front doors. We're going to push it out and get this to come out. And what we're going to do, we're going to do the same thing we did up there. I'm going to fish this wire down like that, have it come out of here, and then I'm going to stick it in, try to get it into that loom. The rubber grommet, I'm sorry. Okay, so we got you right here. So what we do is we want to pull this out all the way, and we want to cut this rubber stuff that's on here. At least on one side, so I can get the wire through here. So now we have to get some kind of a wire, like I use an antenna, try to tape it and fish it all the way through. to get it down into the bottom. There, you pull that out, see that? We want to pull that grommet out as well, so we got both of them off. What we want to do is we want to open this thing up here. So we want to carefully try to pull this clip out. There we go. We want to open this up because we're going to have to fish that thing through. Let's pop that open. Let's take that out. So now we're free here. Cut this other side as well. I want to make it easy for me to try to fish this wire too, because it's going to be a little bit tough. I'm not going to be able to just shove the wire in through there and think you're going to get away with it. That's not going to happen. This, I'm going to tighten this up really, really tight now. Going to pull it and do the same thing. Shoot it through the hole that's right in here. Pretty big hole. And I'm going to try to grab an antenna, show you how to do that. If you can't get it in there, then the only option is going to be to slice this open. Or maybe slice a little bit, run it to there, slice a little bit, and then get it to there. That's what I like to do here is take like an antenna, a car antenna. And that car antenna, what you want to do is like, basically take the wires to it. First kind of wrap it around a little bit and then run some tape on there. Try to straighten this out as much as possible. Trying to push it down through there. Here, let's cut it, hold the wire, and then pull this back out. Now we got this routed through there. Put that grommet back into the slot there, and back on the slot there. What we'll do here, we'll shove this wire in here, and then we'll grab it once we take the panel out. And we'll do the same thing with this side. Run it into there. I'm going to go ahead and try to put this grommet back on. Now you might need either a little screwdriver or something to kind of push this one. It's kind of tight in here. Get your fingers in there. Push the inner part of it down and in. Take a couple of tries. Make sure it's all the way in, all the way around. That's back in, and so is the other one on the side over here. Now, I'm going to take the door panel off. Pull this piece off. Same thing like the front doors, 7 millimeters. Cover comes off. These rivets do not come off, guys. They sound like they're breaking, but they're not, guys. They're real hard metal clamps that are holding it in there. It's pretty hard to get off. And it's not like a regular door panel where you can just stick your tool right behind it and you're taking it off. The metal clips is almost like you have to put this part on, like right there. See these clips? everywhere there's one of these little things there. There's a clip there, and you can't even get your door panel fixed. It's really hard to get on there and even get anything. But that's off. Remember I did this door lock last time? I think I grabbed it right here somewhere. I think I stuck it over here on this side, and then I ran the wire all the way and I tied it right here. Okay guys, so in this back one, the way I did this, I actually used the slim actuator. And the reason I did that is because I'm going to stick it right back here. Now you might be able to use another type of actuator because the other actuators kind of go like this and then they come down like that. Whereas this one's actually sitting here like that. This thing in like this. We'll go ahead and stick it in there. We're going to run that rod all the way across. Trying to grab it. This is the fun part. Now what we don't want is we don't want it to hit on here. Okay? If it hits on there, it's gonna impede our. The good thing about this actuator is that this thing spins. So instead of it being like this, I want it like that, so it goes behind it. So since this isn't a standard actuator, the holes aren't in the standard spots. So I'm going to have to pull the actuator back out and just kind of eyeball where I think it's supposed to sit. I just kind of mark the head to where I think it's going to be. So then that way when this thing is sitting in there, it kind of gives me an idea kind of where I marked it. Right there. That's roughly where it's giving me the hole. There, and there. And you're saying, well, what if you don't get the hole right first time? The good thing about this is that you can drill out the hole just a little bit bigger because it's not going to grab onto here. It's going to grab onto the back of this. So if the hole's a little bit bigger on the outside, if it still hits that screw, that's all we care about. So you could do these the same way I did the ones in the front. You could run the screw all the way through it and then mark them. And there you could do that as well. I think I got it fairly close. This one I might have to make a little bit bigger. And that's okay because the heads are a little bit bigger on the screw, so I'm going to put our little screws on our little fasteners here. Okay guys, so we have a little small situation here. Sometimes this happens when you're doing aftermarket door locks, is that the head of this is actually hitting on this little slanted part right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the actuator back out. I'm going to cut this metal and bend it out a little bit. Just need to get the actuator out first. Okay, we finally got it. Ooh, that was a little bit of work, guys. So I forgot what I did on the last one I did, but I did have to bend the metal. So this one, I actually just grind it out. I actually cut out a piece to let the motor, because it's actually hitting, because this part is actually concaved in right here. So I actually cut the metal off of there. So if you cut a little piece out of there, it allows this actuator to go through there real easily. And as I'm watching this right here, it looks like it's almost hitting on there. So I should push this actuator back just a hair. It's locking and unlocking. And we're going to go ahead and just get our wires, cut them, tie them together. So what I'm going to do here, since I'm using different colors here, I'm still going to use green as my lock wire that's coming from the relay. So lock has to go to unlock on here. So this is unlock. So here's where it's got to flip over, because the actuator's working backwards in here. Remember, if it was working like a normal actuator, up is unlock, down is lock, then the green wire would be the lock wire. We would just put green to green. But in this situation, it's a little different. Oh, before I forget, I'm going to put this thing back on here. I'm going to shove it back in there, put our loom, and then snap it back on there. So it's back on where it's supposed to go. And that pretty much does it for the door lock. So I'm just going to put the panel back on. I'm not going to show you that. So the next step will be to finish up the alarm. Okay guys, so we have the 3 actuators in. We have everything tapped at our ECM over here. We kind of know where we're going. Last thing to do is get the alarm wired up, and then get rid of any wires that we're not going to use, and then also wire up the relays for the door locks, which is another thing we need to do. Okay, so this installation's taken most of the day already, just because I've been filming. So first thing I like to do is take the alarm, and then with the sensor, I pretty much, since this is going to go on the passenger side, I'm probably going to go almost all the way up, and I'm just going to back up about 1/8 of a turn, not much. I want the sensor to really kind of pick up. I'm going to go ahead and plug in our harnesses, our big main harness with all the wires that it has on there. Then our horn honk harness, which is what we're going to utilize. So we're not going to utilize the brown wire on this vehicle. So we're going to cut that. That's a siren. Then our valet, which I thought about running it to the driver's side, but then again, I want to make it difficult, not for the driver, but anybody trying to steal it. So I think I'm just gonna tuck it under here, right under the dash, right here below the cigarette lighter. Let the owner know that that's where it's at. Normally I go to the driver's side kick panel or over there somewhere, but first of all, I don't know if this is going to reach all the way over there, for one. I might have to extend the wires and all that kind of stuff, so this guy really doesn't use the valet, but just in case he needs it for the override. The starter wires, we're not doing a starter kill on here. Those normally go on here. It's just 2 big connectors, so I'm just going to plug them in, but I'm going to cap them. So we're not going to utilize the starter kill on that. So basically on those, we're just going to go ahead and cut these off, cut them shorter, and then put some crimp caps on them. This wire's kind of thick, so I do have to pull the insulation off of it in order to put a connector on it. Or I could have just not even put them on there, but I want to leave them on there in case the customer ever pulls this alarm out, wants to put it in a different vehicle. Those connectors on there seem a little bit bigger than the normal connectors we have for, say, like speakers and stuff. So it wouldn't be very easy to come up with those kind of connectors if you needed to. You wanted to do a starter kill later on there. Then we have our door lock harness, which is the blue and the green. This is the one we're going to run some relays to. And then obviously our LEDs over here. So once I put the alarm over there, I'll go ahead and plug in the LED. So what I like to do when we start off here is just start eliminating wires that we're not going to use. So like the orange wire, this is generally for a different starter kill, roll-up window module. I like to go just past the fuses, maybe about an inch or so, and then just cut it, get rid of it. We're not using it. So any wires we're not going to use, we're going to get rid of. This blue and white wire we're not going to use. Let's go ahead and cap it. This is a Chevy, so we're not going to utilize the purple wire, which is for like Fords, for the doors. Get rid of that. Go and cap that off. We're going to utilize the green wire. This is our door trigger. If we were doing a hood or trunk pin or anything like that, we would utilize this blue wire, but we're not. And then the red and white wire, we're not going to utilize it. I believe that's for a second channel. So that leaves us with the door lock wires, our power, our ignition wire. We're not going to need this dome light supervision wire because we're not doing dome light supervision on here. So let's go ahead and cap that one. And cap the red and white one. Out of here. And then lastly, we need to open up the brain because we got to make sure that this usually comes set for positive parking light output, and we're actually running a negative parking light output, so we got to change the jumper in there, and I'll show you how to do that. So we're going to go ahead and open the brain. There's 2 screws in here. Don't lose those. Open it up, I'm going to flip it over. There's a little jumper right here on the board. There's a little plus sign on there, which means that that's where it's at right now. The little jumper, it's on the outside. And if you look on the inside, it's on the inside, it shows like a little negative. I don't know if you can see it or not. Once I pull it out, I don't know if you can see it. If you put it to the outside, it's positive. If you put it to the inside, you grab the middle jumper and the outside one, I'm sorry, and the inside one, it would be negative parking lights. That's how simple it is. So we're going to go ahead put this back together. Make sure your harnesses are all the way in. Make sure not to pinch your wire there for your antenna. And then put the 2 screws back on there. So now our white wire, which is our parking light wire, this one here, is going to actually put out a negative feed to the parking lights, which is what we want because that's the wire that we found over here at the ECM. Now that we got all our plugs on here, what I like to do with the antenna wire is either, once you get it up there, you can try to route it up as high as you can. This alarm is really, really good, so you don't really have to do that. I usually just kind of just wrap it around these spots right here where usually you mount it with. So I got to figure out how I'm going to mount it in there. To figure out something right now when I get it down in there. I might maybe zip tie it to this metal right here on the back side of that. That might work. But the antenna on these, the reception on these, the distance on these is really, really good. If you're not getting good distance on it, then you want to take this antenna wire and kind of try to route it up as high up into the dash as you can. That way you can get a little bit more distance for your remotes. If you're noticing you're not getting very good distance. So I'm just going to take my wires here. Tie that there. Bring these down like this. And then I'm going to get 2 relays, and that's where we're going to do our door locks. I'm going to set them right here. So what we're going to do next is we're going to wire up 2 relays. These are 30 amp relays. So we got 2 of these. And then I got 2 harnesses that go onto those relays. Now, if you look at these relays, they actually have numbers on them. You probably can't see them on camera, but they have numbers on each corresponding connection. On the middle, the sides. For example, the top one says 87. The bottom one says 30. And then I think it says 85, 86 on the sides. And then 87A is the middle. So basically what happens is when you put power to one side and ground to the other, it makes a connection between these two, this one and this one. So it makes a disconnection from these two. So normally these two are connected here, and then it makes a disconnection and it connects it from here to here. So door locks, when you're doing aftermarket now, this alarm doesn't have a diagram for it, but I have an old diagram here from an old alarm system that does. Blue is the unlock, green is the lock. Okay, so our green lock is going to go to one of the 85s on one of the relays over here, and then the unlock is going to go also to the 85, but the other relay. Okay, and I'm going to go through that, and then on the opposite side of those connections, which is on the 86s, so on one relay you're going to have the green wire here. On the other relay, you're going to have the blue wire here. And then on the opposite side of that, you're going to have positive 12 volts. Okay? What it's saying here. Now, it says to fuse it. I never fuse them, but I mean, if it says put a 3.5 amp fuse, you can do that if you want. And then the middle wire is going to be a constant ground, the 87A, which is this one in the middle. Okay, that's going to be a ground. And then the top wire on each one, the top connection, which is going to be 87. So this one here and this one here are going to have power on both relays. Okay, that would be 86 and 87. 86, 87, 86, 87 have power. And then you have your unlock on the other side, lock on the other side of the other relay. One relay here, one relay there. And then on the bottom, this bottom one here, and it has ground in the middle on both of them. The bottom one here, one of them is going to be your lock wire, one of them is and the other relay is going to be your unlock wire. So those are basically the ones that we're going to run down here. So we're going to basically do all this up here, and then we're going to take it down there and wire it up. Okay, so the first thing I like to do is I like to take, now the wires that they're talking about that are coming from here, they're going to correspond to whatever colors are on here. So these colors might not match. Now if you don't want to use sockets like this, you could just go directly from your color power here, red here, black here, you know, the alarm wire here, and then the other wire here. That's fine. You can go straight to there. You could just use connectors and not use these sockets, because this might be a little bit misleading because of the colors that are on here. So I'm not really paying attention to the colors on here. I'm paying attention to the location on here. So that's a little bit more difficult for somebody that doesn't know what they're doing. So I'm looking at the relay already to kind of know what's going on, what goes where, you know, which one's which on here. And if I get confused, I'll go back to my diagram and look on there. That's going to kind of tell me what's going on. So hold on. This relay is no good. I got to show you something real quick, just because I purchased these relays and I didn't realize this one's made by a different company. This relay here is missing the top piece up here. See that? So this would be good for like a starter kill because these two are connected and then it would go to nothing. So there's nothing there. So you can use this for a starter kill relay. It's probably what it's for. But this is not going to work for a door lock relay. So what I like to do is put my two sockets on there first. And they only go in one way. What I like to do is tape these together so that I'm looking at them and then they're not rattling around anywhere. Go there. And then next I'm going to zip tie it right here to my alarm, right below all these connections. Now you can do this any way you want. You can put the relay somewhere else. This is just the way I do it. It's my preference. Doesn't make it right or wrong if you're putting the relay somewhere else. You don't have room, then you put the relay somewhere else. Obviously I got a lot of room down here, guys, so I'm choosing to do it here so that everything kind of goes in at once. Okay, so then what we're going to do here, we're going to assume a few things, okay? Once I hook up over here to power and ground and all that, which we still need to get ground off of the body, we're going to run those power and grounds to these, a couple of the wires that are here. With these wirings here, normally with stereos, yellow is your constant. In alarms, it's not. This is not a constant 12 volts. This is the ignition wire. So you have to be real careful. Don't be tapping into that. This is our constant feed right here. So this is going to be our constant wire. So as our diagram mentioned, as we're looking at it earlier, as we're looking at the relays earlier, if you look right here, the top of this relay right here, that's going to be a constant feed. 12 volts, 12 volts. So these two red ones are going to have power. Okay. Now, honestly, you could, if you're just going by the diagram like here, exactly, then this would have power, and then this would have power. These middle ones would have ground, and then this one would go to the output of the alarm, either the blue one, this one the green one. This, if we're going off the diagram, this would be the green one, this would be the blue one, and then these yellow ones down here would be the green one to the actual actuators, and the blue one to the actuators. Okay, that's the simplest way to explain it. So that's basically what I'm going to do now. So then these ones, basically all these are going to go to power. The two top ones and the ones on the side. So we're going to go and strip those back. Now again, if you're not sure of the numbers on there, you could pull the socket off and it shows right there what the numbers are. 87's on top, 87's on top. That's why I like looking at it, because normally when you have the tab like this, if you flip it like this, 87's always on top. Okay, and then 30's on the bottom. That's all that I really need to know. 87's on top, that's where my power is going to go, and then to the right is where my power is going to go. So those are going to all have power. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to tie all these wires right here together to this power wire on the alarm. Okay, this one right here, the red that comes from the brain, and then this is going to go to power. So basically all I'm going to do here is I'm going to cut it, and then I'm going to take the other end, because this is going to go to the alarm, like I mentioned 2 or 3 times already. So all these are going to go together. So we want to make sure they're all roughly the same length so that we can tie them into a connector. Now if you want to do this, we can put a connector like this, make it a little bit easier, or strip these back a little bit more so that we can have a little bit more wire, because the wires from the relay are a little bit thicker. So I don't think you're going to be able, unless you have some really big crimp caps, you ain't going to be able to really use a crimp cap in this situation, just because it won't, I don't think the wires will all fit correctly on there, and then you don't want them coming out or anything like that. So I think what I'm going to use here is I'm going to use a yellow, what we call a butt connector, something like this. fit all the wires in there. And then crimp that down. The other side. Okay. And then what I'm going to do too is I'm going to tape this too, just because since the wires are kind of big, I don't want any of those wires slipping out. If a little strand sticking out or something, I don't want that touching anything. So then that's good. This wire comes out. This comes down like that. Okay. So next step, ground. I'm going to take the two middle ones. I'm going to put that to our alarm ground. Wire. Now we have our power and our ground that are extended out. So once we have power and ground here, it's going to engage our relay just like we want. To get from our relay, which is the outside ones here, which is number 85. When you're looking at it, it's on your left-hand side. This would be 85 and 85. So the first socket, which is the first relay on this side, we're gonna assume this is our lock wire. Okay, so our lock wire on the alarm is green. So let's pretend this color is green. It's not green, but we're going to pretend it's green because this is going to go to the green wire from the alarm. So we'll take the alarm wire green. There's two greens on the alarm system. The one that's thinner and it's on the little harness, which is right here. There's two wires coming off there, real thin ones. These are your door lock wires, so this is the one you're going to utilize. You're going to take that green wire, extend it to the same size as the one that's on here already, the outside one, number 85, which is blue on this socket. Obviously you could take this, put a connection, you didn't use the socket, and then you could plug it in right there. You use like a little connector on there. And we're going to make a connection here. So then that's the first wire off the alarm. Now we have the blue wire off the alarm, off the brain. The little thin blue one that comes next to the green one. We're going to put that on the other 85, on the other relay, okay? Which on this socket is blue, happens to match. Again, we're not really paying attention to the color on the socket. We're paying attention to the location of what the number is on that relay, which is number 85. I'm going to go ahead and crimp that. This wire out of the way. Now, we have the last two wires. So right here where the green one is, on the relay on that side where the green one is, this one's going to go to the green one over to where our door locks are. Okay? And then this one's going to go to the blue one where the door locks are, and the orange wire from the back. Remember, that orange one simulates like the blue one. We changed the color on it. Okay. So I could take this down, put it down here, and then we could just make all our connections that are down here right onto these wires that are here. Okay. So I'm just gonna, I want to make sure, I'm gonna strip the yellow wire over here on the relay to tell me that that's the green one, because then that way, if they're together, I'll know that the stripped one is the green one. That way I'm not sitting there, because I'm going to zip tie it and they're going to be kind of all mushed together. So the one that is stripped is my lock wire coming from my alarm. We're going to take all our wires from our door locks. So we know, like, all these are our door lock wires. So I'm just going to cut them and put them, make them all around the same size. Take the alarm, see where I could mount it. I was thinking of kind of sticking it right here and then putting a big zip tie around it and holding it like that. we're just going to plug this LED right up in here. Right there. You can just plug the LED right there. And all our wires coming up over the top here, our door locks. Okay. And then this alarm will, I can actually tuck it back here. Kind of has to be mounted a little bit because it has a sensor on there. And if you just tuck it somewhere, it's not going to be good. So this definitely, I want to mount this here, but I want these relays to somehow be tucked up in here too as well. So I'm not going to mount it just yet. We'll do that last. Okay. So back to the door locks. I was mentioning, we have all our door lock wires here. So we're going to take all of our blue wires. These are for the front two doors. And the orange one is actually considered our blue wire, okay? From the back door. Remember, we changed colors back there because we ran out of wire. So pretend that orange is blue. So I'm going to tie these together. Actually, these are stripped back a little bit. Maybe a ½ inch. And then, like I said, from the relay, we had the one that was stripped was our green wire, right? We want the other one. We want the other yellow one, this one. This is going to be like our blue wire. That's the door lock, unlock side. So this is going to put like all the blues essentially together. Again, you could take this directly to that relay and not put a socket like I did on there. Maybe be a little less confusing for you guys. And then we're going to take all our greens and we're going to put it to the other yellow one, which would essentially be the lock side of the relay. I'm trying to go slow enough here, guys, so you guys can understand me. Anybody that's doing alarms should understand this. If you're novice at this, might be a little overwhelming, but if you take it step by step, you'll be able to do it. So we're going to take that other yellow wire from the lock relay. Remember that? The one that I stripped back? That's my lock wire. That's going to go to the greens of all the door locks. Okay? So the door locks are all wired in. Door locks are done. All we need is the horn. So we need to take these wires, they need to come back and they need to go over here to the ECM. So all these wires are going to come up and over here. Okay. Now, what I'm going to do here, I forgot one thing, guys. The horn wire from the alarm, which is brown, we're not going to use that. Because we're not putting a siren in here. We're putting a horn honk. But I'm going to use that same wire to extend this horn honk wire because it's not long enough, and I'm going to bring it over here. So basically, this has brown with black. This only has brown. I don't have a brown and black wire anyways, so I'm going to use this as my horn honk wire, just extending it so it'll reach up here to where it needs to be at the ECM. All right, so we got all this done here. I'm going to go back up like this. I think I'm going to pull the relays out so then that way these will reach. So I'm going to go back out and come back up over here. There's a hole back here where I brought these wires to, so I'm going to shoot these back out that way and come up like where I routed everything else. Okay. Thing is that now all your door lock wires are kind of longer because I pushed that back. So I'm just gonna, these wires I'll end up tucking them back in here.
zip tie and I'm tucking them back in there, so I'm not worried about that. These wires all come right here. Valley will go right there. And then we'll clean up all that when we're done. Somebody ran a wire here. It looks really cheesy. And then we're going to mount our alarm right here with a big zip tie on it. We're going to use a lot of these connectors. Little male disconnects. I'm going to go ahead and strip back. So this is the ground. So the ground, I'm going to have to grab something on the on this metal here. So I'm probably going to pull that ground back, and I'm going to get it right here on the body. You can see it right here. See that? I want to get it right here where the body ground's already there. Just going to pull that wire back. I didn't see that ground there, so if I would have saw it, I would have just grabbed it. What's nice is when you put it on with the zip ties, you can still just pull it out. See, just pull that out, and then I'll just cut that to the size right there, and then I'll put a little connector on it. And then that way it'll be on a factory ground, which I know is a good ground. So we're going to use one of these little bit bigger ones. The small one won't work because the bolt is a little bit bigger. I'm going to go ahead and crimp that. So it's a 10mm bolt. Take that off. Put our connector on there. And back down. That's good ground right there. Ignition is pink on the green plug, which this is our ignition wire, so we're going to go ahead and hook this one up first. So this would be goes to there. Cut it just a little bit to get it to the size. Strip it back. Get a connector on it, make sure that it's centered, and plug it in. There's one wire. Parking lights, negative is the light blue on the white plug, which is this one here. So this is our parking lights, is going to go to this one. Same thing, kind of measure it, cut it to the size, strip it back, and the wire, put it in the connector, crimp it down. Make sure it's centered. Because sometimes what happens when you crimp it, this little metal piece likes to go all the way down, and when you put it in, you're not actually connecting it. So another way to check too is if you look here and you look here, as long as you don't see metal, you know it's connected. Okay. Now, we have two brown wires, which one of them I believe is the door, and then the other one is the horn. So the horn is on the brown plug, which is this one here. I believe that one was correct. So the horn is our brown wire. We're going to put that one first, measure it to the size. Let's cut it, strip it, fold it in half, put our connector on it. Make sure, see how the connection right here, you guys can see that the little spade is actually pushed to the bottom, so you want to push it, kind of push it up to where it's centered. And if not, you can always use like a little screwdriver or something to kind of push it into the middle. You want that thing in the middle. You don't want it like pushed down. So then that one is going to go to the tan wire on the brown plug. Now this last one, which is our door trigger, which is the green wire here, the instructions had said that it was a tan wire on the pink plug that's here. There's only one tan, but it's tan with white, and I tested it and it's not the door trigger. But I did test this tan wire that's on the gray plug right here, and I'm going to go ahead and measure that. Strip it back, and that did give us, it did make our dome light turn on or activate. So that seemed to be the correct wire. And you know what? Sometimes these instructions are given by humans, so they are wrong. That's why it's always good to check them. So we're going to go ahead and make our connection here for the door. Good to go. And then our last wire is our power. So once I put this wire on, the alarm system should either go off or make a noise or something. Every alarm's a little different. Some of them just start going off. Some of them go on and off, and like they turn on and then they turn right off. Perfect. We're gonna go ahead and hit the unlock. So we're gonna go ahead and hit the door locks, and I'm just gonna check everything real quick. These two are locked. I'm gonna go check the back one. LED is flashing. We're good. Hit the unlock and unlock the back, unlock the driver, unlock the passenger. Looking good. So far, so good, guys. Right. I'm going to run the valet over here. Zip tie this. So these wires are not like dangling right here. Let's get all these wires together here. And the rest of this, I'm just going to fast forward through it. So it's going to go really quick right now. Like putting this back in, mounting the brain, putting the cover back on and all that stuff, guys. And that's pretty much it. Let's go ahead and check it one more time now that we tucked everything in there. Lock, unlock.
Looking good.
See how the sensor picks up. Nice. Picks up pretty good. Yeah, these sensors actually are pretty good on this, on these DEI products. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and put the side panel back on. 3 clips. And then this last piece here. Now it does use 2 10mm bolts. I did find another bolt in my stuff. It was missing one, so I'm gonna go ahead and put it in. I'm gonna drill a little hole on the bottom of here, on this side, for the valet right here. Basically with the valet, one wire is ground and then the other one's not. So you can actually just snip this wire. You're not gonna short anything out, even though the alarm's hooked up. So I fix a lot of these valet wires when they break. When you mount them on the driver's side, a lot of times people kick them, they break them. When they got them mounted in a spot where, you know, really easy access. So sometimes when you, with these type of valets that don't have screws on them, with DI's products, sometimes you'll, if you over drill them, sometimes what will happen is they'll be loose. You can either glue them from the back. That's one way to do them. Just put a little dab of some crazy glue back there and it won't move. Or what you can do is put a little bit of tape. If you don't have the right drill bit, sometimes this will happen. Just put a little tiny bit of tape and then just cut it off and then put it back on there and see if it'll tighten up. And usually you can get it nice and snug, just like that. I had to do that with the LED because the LEDs for these are like a specific size, and the bit that I have is just a hair too big. And so here we go. We'll go ahead and we'll match up colors right here. So that pretty much does it, guys. That's how to put an alarm in this 2013 Chevy Express with power locks. So if you're going to do one of these and you're charging for it, you want to charge good money. Something like this one I charged about $7.50. So I charged like 170 for each motor and each door because I use the DI ones. If I wouldn't have used the DI ones, I charged about 150 a door. And then it was like 200 for the alarm, something like that. But then plus tax and all that stuff. So anyways, guys, thanks for watching. If you have any questions, hit me up.